Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to do a video from How to Survive AI Predicts an American Civil War. So let's go ahead and jump into it.
You and your family wake up to an emergency broadcast.
The United States is now in a state of emergency.
Riots erupt, statues are torn down, and the government collapses under the weight of escalating violence. Food shortages and rampant looting lead to widespread panic. Clashes between armed forces break out across the country. Would America ever be able to recover from this kind of devastation? What would happen to the government? And how could...
So I have a thought, because the reason I wanted to do this video is because we've been kind of throwing around the word Civil War, and we could possibly be in the fourth turning. The reason I feel this way, and I don't know if you guys feel it, but I kind of feel this way sometimes, where it's like I'm on high alert, and I've been like this for a while, and this was even before my channel. When I seen all the escalation of everything that's going on with all these riots, food shortage, it just got me thinking, like, how close are we to a civil war, and what should we do? Because our country's on the brink of it. And then with the whole new thing that's going around with those two National Guard people that are saying that them and their colleagues are not going to obey the commander-in-chief's order, I feel like they should be stripped of their titles and be, like, dishonorably discharged, because that's your job, is to follow the orders. But the fact that they're openly saying they're going to go against them, that should worry you, because we're literally right there at this point. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments, so let's go on.
You survived the chaos. Well, before we answer that, let's rewind and uncover how we got here. We asked ChatGPT to research and predict how another civil war might unfold in the United States. Now, keep in mind, GPT is just an LLM, a large language model. It's not a sophisticated artificial intelligence, so this simulation isn't perfect. But stick around, we'll also share some survival tips for staying alive in a lawless America. If you want to be prepared for this and other not-so-unlikely scenarios, make sure to hit that subscribe button. 6 months before the war, the polarization of America has reached new heights. Political speeches have become increasingly inflammatory, with leaders portraying the opposition as existential threats to the nation's...
Which is crazy, because that's what's been happening for like a while. And you hear that with the rhetoric coming from the left, with Pritzker, and with politicians like Hakeem Jeffries, Schumer, AOC, Bernie Sanders. You hear it from people like Brandon Johnson. The rhetoric that they're using to dehumanize the people on the right is just amplified. And none of the, like, when something tragic happened, like for example with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, they had the audacity, which pissed me the hell off, to blame the right and tell the right that we need to cool down our rhetoric. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? And then what did they do? They went right back at it to keep talking their trash. And it's like, they want this. This is what they want.
Future.
Is America headed for a civil war?
Partisan news outlets amplify the polarization by presenting biased interpretations of events and selectively reporting facts. Making things worse, people only get one side.
And you guys seen that. I've actually reported this on my channel. When I was talking to you guys, like, I had brought up, I want to say it had to do with ICE and all that stuff. Because, that's one of our other favorite topics. But I would remember reading an article to you, and I remember telling you guys, you could totally tell it was left-leaning because of the language that they were using. They were using such hyperbolic language, and they were leaving out, like, crucial details. And I always tell you guys that I'm more about context. So if you're using language like calling people child or children, like you're not being specific and you're pulling at people's heartstrings. Or if you're purposely misleading them by saying migrants, or, like trying to lump all the community into one instead of saying illegal migrants. Or when they were using the rhetoric of, and I'm just trying to think of all the different things because there were so many things listed there, to be honest. But like when they were using the example of the zip tie, they're zip tying black babies. But then it turns out that was debunked because the guy that owned the photo said, no, that never happened. That was me and my child playing cops and robbers, and I took a photo in the moment because we were having fun. But y'all took it to a whole nother level. That's what they're talking about here.
Side of the story on social media. But we already know that. Algorithms designed to maximize engagement increasingly push users toward content that reinforces their existing beliefs. The period leading up to the American Civil War in the 1850s saw a similar intensification of divisions. And although this time the issue isn't about slavery, racism is still a big part of the growing civil unrest. At this point, the best you can do is to stay informed with a reliable source of news. This means you should also look for media outlets outside of social networks. Try to analyze how both sides are spreading information. As the presidential election approaches, accusations of voter fraud and foreign interference spread like wildfire. Political rhetoric and misinformation amplify distrust in the electoral process, leading to widespread calls for investigations and recounts.
Now, if you watch Steven Crowder, he actually did a segment on this, and they actually went to some of the places that the supposed voters that were voting, that got like these, like the mail-in ballots from. They weren't even real places. They were empty lots, and some of them were just like, like garages. Like these people didn't exist. So I can see how a lot of the fraud was happening. It might not have been enough fraud to change the election, but there was still some there, and we'll never know because people try to hide everything. That's why Pritzker and Brendan Johnson don't want the Trump administration to look over their census and their voter rolls because they know that they're going to get caught up.
Protests become more frequent and more intense. Issues like racial injustice, police brutality, and economic disparities lead to massive demonstrations. And these protests often encounter counter-protests, resulting in violent confrontations. The atmosphere becomes charged with tension as both sides view each other not just as opponents, but as enemies. Pay attention to warnings from local authorities and independent news outlets. Being aware of potential hotspots for violence can help you avoid dangerous situations. 1 week before the war, secessionist movements begin to pop up across the country. States and regions disillusioned with the federal government start declaring their independence. Leaders are torn between using force to prevent the breakup of the country and seeking diplomatic solutions to address the demands of the secessionist states. Supporters of secession see it as a legitimate exercise of self-determination and a way to reclaim their rights and freedoms. Opponents view it as a dangerous path to anarchy and national disintegration. During this time of high tension and violence, it's crucial to keep a low profile. Move quietly and cautiously near conflict areas, avoiding sudden...
You always want to go gray man. The other thing you want to do is that if this happens, let's say hypothetically because of the whole, snappocalypse that's happening on November 1st, coined by Tim Pool, if that happens where there's a food shortage, and let's say you are prepared, right? And one thing you would have to make sure that you do, aside from going gray man, is that you have to make sure that you go to those bread lines. And you have to stay looking disheveled, because if they see you're looking a little plump, a little healthy, and you're all clean and all, they're going to start to wonder, do you really need this bread? And then they're going to follow you, and then they're going to take your shit, So it's always good to make sure that you're following what you're seeing, and always watch your six, because you need to take care of you and your own. You know, that's the one thing that I know from watching all these like prepper videos. And like the Canadian Prepper is a very good one, and Black Eagle Scout is another one. But you should really watch these type of videos, because it will help you prepare for the inevitable if it does come to surpass. Now, I'm not trying to fearmonger. We don't know. We might actually, like, let's say nothing happens and everything gets walked back. Hey, great. But it's always good to be prepared.
Movements that could draw attention, or worse, gunfire. As the crisis deepens, divisions within the military and law enforcement become inevitable. Citizens in these institutions begin to take sides based on their political beliefs and regional loyalties. Some units refuse to obey orders from the federal government, while others remain loyal, leading to a fragmentation of authority and control. This means more violent confrontations. For civilians, the division within the military and law enforcement poses a significant threat. The breakdown of law.
And that's what I just told you guys about. Now, Tim Pool, he talked about this before. I remember watching some of his videos and lives, and he was saying, like, that's one of the fears, is that what are you going to do when you have military that's going to not want to obey orders? And now you're going to have brother against brother. And will that be the black swan event? And that's just happening right now. If my last video I was talking about it.
An order now leads to an increase in crime and violence. And with different factions fighting for control, civilians find themselves caught in the crossfire. Familiarize yourself with escape routes and safe zones. Knowing where to go and how to get there if your current location becomes unsafe will become crucial for your survival. As the federal government loses its authority, paramilitary groups and militias begin to mobilize. These groups, often driven by extremist ideologies or local loyalties, take advantage of the chaos to push their agendas and assert control over territory. Clashes between rival groups from the same state become common, contributing to a growing humanitarian crisis. Civilians face displacement, shortages of food, water, and medical supplies. Human rights abuses are widespread. Make sure to prep a basic emergency kit containing everything you'll need to survive: food, water, and first aid supplies. And steer clear of
and make sure you prep for your area. So if you're in a like in the Midwest, for example, where it's like hot half the year and then cold half the year, make sure you're prepping for both types of weather. If you're in the South, you want to prepare your bug out bag to have those essentials that you would need for that type of weather. Now, if you're someone that's going to be traveling back and forth, having a bug out bag that has both is always best. But yeah, you got to make sure that you have your bug out bag ready to go. Get paper maps, download Copilot on your phone. I'm not trying to endorse the company, and I'm not paid by them, but it's something I use when I travel, because I've gone into areas where there was no cell network, which you would think is not possible, but it is. And so my navigation wouldn't work. But when I had Copilot, because you download those the maps into your phone, if you have no network, it still will navigate you to the right place. And the maps are always up to date. So, download that into your phone, download like basic PDFs and do it not only on your phone, but on USB drives as well. Like PDFs for any type of like prepping stuff, medical stuff, preparation food, stuff like that. You want to always make sure that you're completely prepared. I know some people think like, oh, it's that crazy person that has a sign that says, "And the end is nigh," but it's more so just to be prepared, because sometimes it rains.
Crowded areas like markets, transportation hubs, and government buildings, all potential targets for an attack. The situation now escalates into a full-scale civil war, as opposing sides engage in guerrilla warfare, terrorist attacks, and conventional battles for control of territory and resources. It's an ongoing cycle of violence and retaliation with no clear end in sight. Refugee camps overflow with displaced citizens, and humanitarian organizations struggle to provide aid in the middle of the chaos. Make sure to keep important documents like passports, driver's licenses, and emergency contact information on you at all times. These will be crucial for identification and for getting help in case you're injured or separated from your loved ones. And before you go any further, get a weapon or something to use for self-defense. Even if you're a pacifist, you should be able to fight for your life if necessary. As the conflict drags on, the economic impact starts to show. Businesses across the nation are forced to shut their doors. Supply chains, which once provided a steady flow of goods and services, break down completely. As transportation networks are disrupted and production facilities are abandoned or destroyed, basic necessities are now scarce. The stock market crashes and the value of the dollar spirals downward. Prices for everyday goods skyrocket, placing them out of reach for the average citizen. Unemployment soars as companies face mass layoffs. Those who still have jobs find their wages are now not enough.
Isn't it scary? Because it kind of sounds like what's happening right now. You have Walmart closing down a bunch of stores. You have Amazon, who is going to nuke about, I think, 500,000 jobs. You have, stores that are going to start being scarce with food because of production. And then, we've seen this in COVID. That was like a snippet of what is possible. So it's kind of getting very scary to know that we're kind of teetering at this point.
To buy what they need. Communities that used to trust and help each other are now splitting apart, fighting for resources and living in fear. Similarities to the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s become apparent, and Americans face poverty and despair on a scale previously unimaginable. This war could last months or years, and it will be hard to survive alone. Building relationships with your neighbors and community members will be a priority. Sharing resources, information, and assistance will improve the group's chances for survival. The end of active conflict marks the start of an equally challenging phase, the reconstruction. As they celebrate their triumph, the winners face the monumental task of rebuilding a nation devastated by war. Infrastructure is in ruins. Roads, schools, and hospitals need to be reconstructed from the ground up. And it'll be a long road ahead for the government to regain the trust of their citizens. The Civil War has cemented the distrust of political leaders and the disillusionment with our institutions. Proving transparency and accountability will be critical to rebuilding trust. At this stage, you should still be prioritizing getting food, water, and medical supplies. Traditional systems may still be disrupted, so explore alternative means of transportation, communication, and sourcing food. The long-term effects of the Civil War will cast a long shadow over the nation. Social, economic, and psychological scars will affect generations. Rebuilding trust, healing wounds, and addressing systematic injustices become ongoing struggles. The new government should promote reconciliation, economic development, and mental health support as critical steps to the nation's long-term recovery. Another American Civil War would be a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. And while this scenario might be hypothetical, many people argue we're already living in the first stages of it. The problem is the conflict doesn't necessarily begin and end in the United States. As tensions across the planet continue to escalate, the possibility of another world war seems more likely than ever. How would it unfold? And how could you survive it? Well,
so you seen that, you heard that. Again, I just wanted to make this video not to be a doom and gloom, but it's more so to keep you guys aware of what's going on and make comparisons to see if you feel the same way, and if you do, just prepare. There's nothing wrong with being prepared. And I definitely would make sure that you guys are working out, make sure you guys are going gray man, make sure you guys have a bug out ban, have a plan, have backups. I know the economy is kind of tight, but hey, you can always, I would say dollar store, but it's no longer a dollar store. The dollar store is like crazy pricey. I should do a video on it because we went to the dollar store, and sorry, I'm just going on a quick tangent. We went there and I was surprised that stuff wasn't $1. It was like $1.50. We even found something in there for $20. We're like, are you kidding? But apparently that's the new version of the dollar store. But you can find stuff that's affordable. Make sure you get stuff that you actually would want to eat. Don't panic buy anything that you're never gonna eat, because you don't want it to just stay there. Make sure you stock up on medical supplies, just in case, if you get any wounds, if something does, pop off. But you guys let me know your thoughts in the comment below. Do you think the AI predict the American Civil War was on point? Do you think we're like right there at the precipice? Or do you think we're just so far from it? Do you think we're just still kind of in the civil strife like mode? So you guys let me know. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Till next time, guys.